explaining standard deviation like you're 5. What do we mean by standard deviation? Here's a simple explanation. We can say that the standard deviation is the typical distance of values away from the mean. The mean is the average value in a set of data. In textbooks, data looks like this, nice and smooth. However, dealing with datasets in real life, they generally look lumpy. Let's look at an example of a set of data and plot a graph. Let's say you have 3 small counters, 5 medium counters and 2 large counters. We can assign the scale of each counter a value. Let's give the small counters a value of 1, let's give the medium counters a value of 2, and let's give the large counters a value of 3. Now, how do we find the mean value? As there are 3 1s, the small counters give a value of 3. As there are 5 2s, the medium counters give a value of 10. And as there are 2 3s, the large counters give a value of 6. Combining these values, we get 19. Dividing 19 by the total amount of counters we have, we get the average value of counters, the mean. Let's look at the formula for standard deviation. This is a lot to take in. Xi is each individual data value in the dataset. This line over x means your mean in the dataset. We square the deviations because it removes the negative signs, and it makes larger differences count more heavily. This I equals 1 corresponds to xi, and this n works with I to make sure it goes through each value in your dataset. This increases I by 1 to correspond to the place in your data. Sigma adds up each final value in the brackets. We divide by n minus 1 because using n would underestimate the variance. Subtracting 1 corrects for the fact that the sample mean is only an estimate. We square root everything in order to cancel out the square that we used earlier. Without further ado, let's calculate our standard deviation. We must add these values together and divide by the amount of data we have minus 1. Next, we must square root it. Now, let's plot a graph. As we can see, the line over x is the mean, and the standard deviation is 0.74, which means the typical distance from the mean is 0.74 units. Let's wrap this up. Standard deviation can be calculated for any dataset, regardless of the shape of its distribution. On a graph represented by data, the mean represents the average value of the dataset. The standard deviation represents how spread out data is away from the mean. That about wraps up standard deviation. If there's anything you don't understand, please drop a comment. And as always, like and subscribe to see more videos.